The Game of Thrones universe has no shortage of batshit evil characters, so I thought it would be fun to take a look at Season 1 of House of the Dragon and rank our characters from least to most evil. Now, evil is a subjective term. One man's evil is another man's foot fetish, so I'll do my best to explain why certain characters are above others. Keep in mind, this is a ranking up until the end of Season 1 of the show, so it's entirely possible characters will do things later on that will totally shake up the positions. Starting with number 10, and I think this one is going to surprise a lot of you, Aemond Targaryen. In episode 10, he accidentally killed Luke, so you can't really call it pure evil like some of the other characters on this list. That isn't to say he didn't want to hurt Luke, for goodness sakes he wanted him to cut out his own eye, but that's about as bad as you get with him. As a child, he did claim what was supposed to be Rhaenyra's dragon, but I gotta side with Aemond here. You snooze, you lose, Rhaenyra. Plus, it was Rhaenyra and Baela who started the fight, which led to that whole fiasco in the first place. For these reasons, I'm putting Aemond at number 10. Sliding further toward evil at number 9 is Corlys Velaryon. He wouldn't even be on this list if it weren't for what he did in episode 8, where we find out he abandoned his wife and grandchildren for 6 years. That's just a dick move. Furthermore, for almost his entire life, Corlys had put his own ambition before his family. He even tried to marry off his 12-year-old daughter to the king. But there's at least one saving grace here. In episode 10, he repents and tells Rhaenys he's sorry for what he did. So here's hoping Corlys will make it off this list next season. Sitting at number 8 is Rhaenyra Targaryen. Her evil deeds aren't centered around murder and ambition like others on this list, but lies. In episode 4, she swears on her mother's memory that nothing happened between her and Daemon in that brothel and that her maidenhood was still intact. These lies start Alicent's distrust of her, and they fester and build up resentment over time. Rhaenyra also lies about the parentage of her 3 sons, Jace, Luke, and Joffrey. I can't really fault her for cheating on her husband because that was a mutual agreement between the two. Rhaenyra is also complicit in faking her husband's death, leading Corlys and Rhaenys to believe that their son is dead. Not only that, but she marries her uncle the day after Laenor's supposed death. Rhaenyra is also a hypocrite, complaining to her father about being treated like a pawn to be married off to some lord in exchange for an army, when twice she proposes various betrothals of her children to further her own personal position. So while she may not have gone around killing people indiscriminately, her actions certainly have set up the events we'll come to know as the Dance of Dragons. At number 7 is our beloved King Viserys. For the most part, Viserys is a great king. Otto even calls him Viserys the Peaceful, and at almost every turn he tries to de-escalate tensions rather than exacerbate them. But there's one event, and I think you guys know what I'm talking about, that solidifies his place on this list. That's the decision to operate on his wife to save the baby without her consent. Unlike Laena, who faced a similar problem on Pentos and was able to make her own choice when it came to her body, Emma had no choice. Viserys made that decision for her, opting to try and save the baby, which ended up killing her. He at least recognizes that his desire for a male son clouded his judgment. He also feels responsible for her death, pushing her to keep having children even after several miscarriages. So if it weren't for this event, I don't think I'd have him on this list at all. Coming in at number 6, it's our favorite foot model, Alicent Hightower. Now, for most of the series, Alicent has been nothing but the proper, dutiful queen. While Rhaenyra's out partying, Alicent's having to bed her lesion-covered husband, but it's not really until episode 6 that Alicent's resentment toward Rhaenyra builds to such a level that her actions turn sour. We have her requesting to see Rhaenyra's 3rd child as soon as it's born, no doubt to see if it resembles Laenor Velaryon. This results in Rhaenyra's painful walk to the Queen's chambers mere moments after giving birth. Then there's the knife attack at Driftmark, which leads to Alicent cutting Rhaenyra. A few years later, Alicent tries to usurp Lucerys' claim to Driftmark, even though she knows her ill husband would not have wanted that. She also covers up her son's assault of Diana, paying her off with coin and saying that if she tells anyone, no one will believe her. Then when the king actually dies, she tells everyone that the king's final words were that he wanted Aegon to be king. Now this one I'll let slide a bit because I do think in her mind that's what she thought the king was implying. However, she is totally complicit in the persecution of those who aren't loyal to King Aegon and even even imprisons Rhaenys. At the halfway point, we have Sir Criston Cole, the guy who got so love-struck after boinking the princess he basically went insane. I put him middle of the pack simply based on how unhinged he is. He murdered Joffrey in front of everyone, was prepared to take out Luke's eye at Alicent's orders, and killed Lyman Beesbury, even willing to defy the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. He's also kind of all over the place when it comes to his moral code. On the one hand telling Aemond it's important not to shit-talk women, and on the other calling Rhaenyra a Criston, you gotta cool it down. Alright, now we're getting into some real bad eggs. At number 4 is Aegon Targaryen. While he might have started small with little pranks to his brother here and there and some harmless jerking outside a window, I mean, who hasn't done that from time to time, things escalate quickly. Aegon is known to frequent brothels where he has many bastard children. These children are forced to fight in underground rings where Aegon is said to frequent. However, it's also unknown if he really knows these kids are his or not. Regardless, Aegon is an assaulter and seems to show no remorse for it, and who knows how many times he's done this to other women. He also treats his sister wife Helena like utter shit. Now, I did consider switching Criston and Aegon's position here, but it was the kid fight club that did it in for me. At number 3 is Daemon Targaryen. Out of all the characters, this guy has probably done the most bad shit, or at least the most bad shit that we've seen. However, the degree to which you could say it's evil is what stopped me from putting him higher on the list. The guy basically terrorized the citizens of King's Landing when he was head of the City Watch, called his brother's dead child the heir for a day, and lied about marrying Mysaria and her with child so he could steal a dragon egg. He brought his underage niece Rhaenyra to a brothel and almost had sex with her. If that wasn't bad enough, he killed his first wife, Rhea Royce, and would later work with Rhaenyra to fake Laenor's death so they could get married. He kills Vaemond in front of everyone, although that was probably going to happen regardless. He threatens Steffan and Lauren to prove their loyalty and seems more concerned about the war than his wife's health when she's giving birth, not to mention choking the queen. So the guy has a pretty big rap sheet, but there's just something about the next two that put them higher on the list. At number 2, the man with the foot fetish, Larys Strong. In the book, this guy is so manipulative, even the historians aren't sure what side he was truly ever on. And he started his manipulation of Alicent when she was young, first telling her of the moon tea that was delivered to Rhaenyra in the middle of the night. This is what sparked Alicent to question Criston Cole about Rhaenyra's behavior, leading to her finding out about their affair. You could argue that the whole Dance of the Dragons never would have happened if Larys hadn't intervened here. Larys also had his own father and brother killed. He had murderers from the dungeon have their tongues chopped out, presumably so that they could never tell who sent them, and sent to assassinate his family via arson, so he could become Lord of Harrenhal. Of course, he told the queen that he did it for her. Larys also oversaw the roundup of those disloyal to Aegon and personally tracked down Lord Caswell and had him strung up in the courtyard. Because you're never quite sure what side he's playing, it makes him extra dangerous. When confronted about the amount of time he'd been spending with Alicent, Larys tells Otto that his time with her could benefit him too. But perhaps his most unforgivable act is his love for feet. He uses his power over Alicent to pleasure himself in exchange for information. The fact he has so much control over the second most powerful person in the realm should be very concerning. And my pick for the most evil character in Season 1 goes to Otto Hightower. The mad lad did it. Decades of scheming have helped him undermine the king's true wish to have Rhaenyra on the throne. And part of this included him pimping out his own daughter like a pawn. At every turn, Otto used his position as Hand of the King to put down Rhaenyra and prop up Aegon. And while he did things like try to usurp Viserys from Driftmark and plotted behind the king and queen's back, it really isn't until he takes over that we see just how ruthless he is. Upon learning of the king's death, he calls for Rhaenyra and her family to be killed. He rounds up hundreds of castle workers, city guardsmen, and lords to be taken into the dungeon. In the book, many of these people are killed. He just goes full mask off, and this tyrant will do anything to put his grandson on the throne, a grandson he doesn't even really care for. Let's not forget that Viserys even implied that years ago, Otto may have been involved in the death of his father, so he could become Hand of the King to Jaehaerys. We never really know if that's true or not. So the reason I put Otto in the number 1 spot is the scope of his dastardly deeds. While Daemon and Larys have killed, Otto is just on another level, and his cool and calm demeanor hides a ruthless tyrant who will do anything to get his grandson on the throne. So that's my ranking. Agree, disagree, let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you haven't seen my Season 1 breakdown, definitely give that video a look. Thanks for watching. For more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember...
Yeah, don't that look wonderful? If you really pay me enough, we'll massage your feet in any of these sauces also.